Hi, I'm Shahar and this is Spill the Beans. Today I'm in Heartbeats Jewelry Store with Tremaine Fenton, and we are going to talk a little bit about her journey as an entrepreneur. So tell me before everything else, tell me about you, a little bit about you.
Well, I was born and raised here in Utah.
Okay.
I grew up in a small town called Mount Pleasant, which is about in the center of Utah. And I moved up to Salt Lake City when I was in my early 20s. And I've lived here ever since. I have 3 children, and I'm married, and that's
it.
pretty much.
When
the
did you
basic.
start beading?
Well, I used to bead a lot as a teenager, when I was, like 13 or 14, in that age range. And I did a lot of pretty intricate work for being that age, but I had no one to give me any instructions, so I would just look at things and try and figure out how they were made. And but after a while I got frustrated with that because my pieces wouldn't ever really turn out how I wanted them. I didn't know how to well, I didn't know like how to tie a knot and to add new thread. I never was able to figure that out. And so I always had big knots and globs of glue and things in the middle of my pieces, and I would just hated that. And so I wasn't being able to get the results I wanted, so I kind of gave up on it after a while.
Do you come from an entrepreneurial family, or are you the first person to have its own business?
Well, my father had his own business. He had a business where he would go to the coal mines and pick up coal in his truck and bring it back and deliver it to people's houses. That was his business. And really my first own business was catching and selling night crawlers, which are a worm, to fishermen. So that
How
was.
old were you?
I was about, I would say I was about 14 or 15, right around then. And I actually did really well with that, considering, at the time, it seemed like a lot of money and people liked coming to me. And my dad always instilled in me that you always have what the customer needs. You never run out. So I really worked hard to always have stock.
What happened later? Did you have other businesses before starting the bead store?
After that, I just started working jobs for other people. I ended up getting a job for an insurance company, and I worked there for 13 years. So I had a lot of experience doing math. I was a claims processor, so figuring out percentages, and I don't know, I just always kind of had a head for math and business. Yeah, so that helps.
And what made you quit the safe life of an employee to become an entrepreneur?
Well, what happened is the company that I worked for ended up going bankrupt. And
pretty
so
common today too.
Yeah, and so I had my two daughters already, and I got pregnant with my 3rd child, and I decided I wanted to stay home. And so all those years I had not been beading from when I was a teenager until in my 30s. And then what happened is after I had my first baby, I ended up having some health problems. I got just the flu, and then got complications from the flu, and my baby got sick, and I went into like a depression, postpartum depression or whatever. And so my mom had kind of recognized that I was depressed. Her mom used to get depressed easy too. And so she recognized that I needed something to make me excited, something that was fun, something that would keep me boosted up. And so one of her guitar students had given her a daisy chain necklace, and she brought it up to my house and says, "Remember when you used to make these? When you were like 13, and remember how much fun that was for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of, So then things just sometimes fall into place like they're meant to be. And I really felt like things happen for a reason. And my sister had run into a gal that was selling beads out of her car at Bridalveil Falls. I mean, what are the chances of that? I mean, she just happened to be there, and this girl was there, so I ended up getting some supplies from her, and things just fall into place, and it's just amazing how that happens. And then I started selling made jewelry. I was up in Park City. I sold different shows, the Swiss Days, which is a huge festival, Dickens Festival, which is a Christmas, and I did really good at it. And I used to teach at all the bead stores that were locally here. And so many people would be like, oh, you should open up your own store. And I was always like, no, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to have a job. I wanted to be able to be my own boss and be able to just go and do what I wanted. And it was wonderful, but the powers that be, again, kind of have it in for me. And I was teaching at one of the gem shows that comes here. And this lady approached me, and she had told me that she had been storing some beads for her friend who was in a nursing home and had been there for 6 years, and she just had to get rid of her beads. She just couldn't keep them anymore. She'd been storing them all that time, and there was no way her friend was getting better. She was, you know, slipping away. So she wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming and looking at them. And I went out to see what she had, and she opened up this storage locker, and it was just full of boxes, like storage containers. She'd been storing these for all these years, and they were just in peanut butter jars, jelly jars, jam jars. I mean, so a lot of it I didn't even know what it was. And it was like a bead store right there. And it was like, you know, okay. If I must, if I have to buy these, obviously it's meant that I'm supposed to open up a business, because you know, another thing, it just like it was like it fell in my lap.
This was how many years ago?
This was 7 years ago. This was in 2004, like July of 2004. So anyway, we ended up opening a store in August of that year, and we've had to make several moves since.
You got the beads. You really didn't tell your husband about that,
Yeah.
right? And then fast forward some time, you're inside a mall. Well,
Right.
you have higher rent rates there, right? The expenses go up quite a bit because of that. How was
Well,
that?
and honestly, like that mall was on a decline, so they ended up renting me my first space for only $500 a month,
Wow, that's nice.
which was really
Nice.
nothing. I hired my children, my girls, and I had one other employee. And then, you know, we'd have other little part-timers that, you know, a lot of times people would want to earn money for beads or things like that that we kind of worked with. But anyway, it's worked out really good. We've
nice.
kept all of our family together, so it's me and my two daughters now running this shop. And yeah, we really
You know,
enjoy it.
I want to make a point here, because that's really important. When an opportunity knocks at your door, you have to jump at it, right? Because that's when the huge opportunities come up. Let's face it, $500 in New York rents a desk. That's what that money is worth, depending on where you are in the country. And you were able to have a store inside a mall for that amount. And why?
Right.
Because the opportunity came in front of you, and you took action right away.
Yeah, and plus you have to realize it was a downtrodden mall, you know, but there had been
You
a
were there
bead
for
store
how
that
many-
was,
for
I was
how
there
long?
for 3 years.
For 3 years.
And what happened is that was a very small little shop. And then as our business built and people got to know us, then we ended up moving in the mall to a big store, a huge store. It was 17,000 square feet. So it was giant. It used to be a Gap. And so we had tons of space, and of course our rent went up quite a bit. The biggest thing was the utilities too. In that particular sense, it was a really old mall. Like my utilities were pretty close to the same as my rent.
Wow.
You had a basic rent. I think in the bigger store it was like $1,500, but then a percentage on top of that.
I see.
So anything you sold over like $10,000, then there was a percentage that you had to pay on top. So anyway, that was one nice thing about the mall, though, is you knew what your rent was, but and then if you had really good months, you didn't mind paying a little extra for rent. But then when we moved over here, our rent went up again by a lot, but luckily our utility bills went down. Yeah.
What about the clientele? Because you had a very loyal clientele at the mall, right?
Yes.
Did they move here? What did you have to do?
I honestly was very surprised that not more people knew where we were. I mean, I had an email list, a mailing list that I had been collecting for months. As soon as I heard that the mall was going to close, I got on that and I sent out invitations, discount coupons, everything to the store. And for the first, I would say 3 months, I was just like, where is everyone?
You know, I have to tell you one thing. I met you way at the beginning at the other mall. I went there with a friend and we took some classes. And every time, she doesn't live here in Utah, so she's always saying, oh, when I go to Utah, let's go to that lady. And you moved, right? And I heard the mall was closing down, so I knew you were not there. But it took me years to figure out you were here. Mail gets lost, or you don't pay attention the moment you get it.
Right.
So, yeah. So what did you do in the first 3 months then?
I actually took business cards and went to numerous businesses in the area. I did a little networking, and I went and told them about me, and especially the jewelry stores, because the jewelry stores, a lot of times people will bring in broken strands of beads, and the jewelry stores can't manage that. I mean, they don't care about that. That's not what they do. And so it gave me a chance to tell them about me, and they started sending people to me. So as the Cottonwood Mall people finally found me, and then at the same time I was doing a lot of repair work, and that really kept the doors open until our clientele finally found us again.
So you didn't sit here waiting for people to come by, right?
Right.
Well, which is a common mistake.
Yeah.
Right? We see the businesses open, they're nice and everything, but they just sit down and wait for people to come in.
No.
And frankly, they don't do that.
Yeah.
And how did you manage the inventory? Because you were in a small store and you went to a huge one. What happened? Did you just space things out, or
we
you
did
made
it
an
first?
Investment, or?
Yeah, no, I've never been one to believe into going into debt.
Good.
I mean, that is one
for you.
thing that, I mean, if I don't have the money to pay for it, we're not getting it, you know?
And there's another point here that is really crucial for business owners.
Yeah.
To understand that you have the choice to choose growth or profits, and usually profits keeps you in business.
Yeah.
They keeps you in business. While growth, you might invest, and then you're out of business in 6 months.
Yeah.
And we see that happening quite often.
It does, yeah.
How are things today?
Good, really good, yeah, yep.
So here in this store, what are your channels of revenue? You still make jewelry that you sell,
right?
And you give classes?
We teach a lot of classes here. We offer one free class a month, and then we have others that we charge tuition on. So we have that, and we sell beads, of course, and then we do jewelry repair.
Repair. I'm asking you because we always tell people that in any business that you have, there should be at least 5 different channels of revenue within the business. Okay, so it's really important to point that out. And one thing that you do that I quite like is that, so she has the piece of the month.
Right.
Okay? And they can come here for free, they buy the supply. What this really does is bring you new customers, right? And keep them buying, or not.
Well, to us, what we find is it creates people the desire to come back every month.
So you're
as
teaching your
opposed to
audience how to come back to you month after
monthly,
month, which is very difficult to do in business.
As opposed to coming in one time and then never coming again. You know, it keeps them excited to see what the next thing is, and keeps their interest. They always want to see what's new and what new things we can teach them.